What is going on? It's Alex coming back at you with another video, and today it is going to be the 2024 Chargers Deep Dive. This is going to be a three-part series, which it's all going to be in one video, but it's going to be a roster breakdown. Before that, it's going to be a draft breakdown, and it's also going to be a records prediction. So let's hop right into this. This is post Justin Herbert injury. I already recorded this beforehand, and I wanted to be able to just redo it. Also, we're going to be finishing off the entire NFL before the season starts. So let's get right into this. Let's have a good time. Let's get it on. Starting off with the draft class. And, the draft class, honestly, was a really, really solid one. You started out with Joe Alt in the beginning. I was not against it, but I was not overly excited for it, given the fact that Joe Alt is a pure left tackle. I don't really see 100% ease as transferring left to right tackle for every tackle. For him, there was, I think, one specific drill with Jeff Stoutland, and it was basically testing that versatility left to right, and he did seem to be a bit uncomfortable, and, to me, that kind of signaled, hey, maybe not the best transition, but at 5, I'm not going to blame a team for going offensive line. It was far from a bad pick. That was just, more the devil's advocate side of being, hey, this is why it might fail. It might just be PTSD from Evan Neal, but I digress. Joel's a fantastic player. The only thing he just didn't really have was power, but, if you win, you win. And, you don't have to be overwhelmingly powerful, because if you are just primarily a power blocker, you're going to be Trevor Penning. Like, if you don't really have much else to your game, that's very exciting except for power. It's kind of what you end up with. And I'd much rather have the exact opposite of that, which, Joel has pretty much everything except primarily for heavy power. So I'm pretty happy with Joe Alt. Ladd McConkey was a steal there in the second. I know there were some injury concerns. He did have some time where he was banged up there at Georgia. I'm pretty sure that in the most recent episodes of the New York Giants offseason Hard Knocks, he was labeled as one of the guys who was in red for potential health concerns, but the talent undoubtedly was worth it at 34. Junior Colson, pick number 69. Nice. And it's a very nice pick because he goes right into the same defensive system that he was just very successful in. And you guys need a linebacker. Great pick there. Justin Ogbegbe at 105 was probably the guy who I did not like the most out of the picks, like Tarheeb Steele and him. Those two picks, basically based on who was available at the time, would just rub me the wrong way. Justin was consistently ineffective versus even mediocre offensive linemen, in my opinion. I hope there's a bigger vision for him. He's not very largely sized. He was sub 300 pounds. He's listed as a defensive tackle right now as well, which does concern me because he was undersized. There were other defensive interiors available. And to me, I just wasn't over the moon with his game. So at 105, when there were so many other really, really solid talents that were slipping, I did have my concerns. Tarheeb Steele, I just thought that there's a lot better corner talent. And luckily, a couple spots later, they grabbed one of the targets that I thought they needed to in Cam Hart, which was a great pickup. Physical, big corner. And he's a little bit more role specific than maybe I would like to admit, because I wanted Cam Hart to be my guy. But at 140, the value was fantastic. Kamani Vidal, I heard that he's been dealing with some stuff in camp in terms of injury, but, for me, I'm perfectly happy with allowing him to grow and develop because this running back core, we'll be discussing it in a second, really, really bad. And he actually can be one of those guys who pops out of nowhere and ends up kicking some butt. You got Brandon Rice at 225, and no one knew why he fell that far. So TBD as to why. I don't know if you guys did find out. Like, again, I'm a fan of 32 teams. Y'all are a fan of one. Feel free to mention it down in the comment section below. I always say you can be a dick, just don't be a dick about it, because I'd rather get my information wrong once than every single time. And then Cornelius Johnson at 253, perfect system fit. Obviously, going back with his coach there from Michigan. Overall, I don't give out A's very lightly. You guys did a fantastic job. A lot of impact players at impact positions. And, 2 picks that I just didn't like. That's pretty damn solid hit rate because y'all know I'm a little bit picky. But continuing on to the depth chart analysis, this is based on our lads as of today, which is August 5th. So, this is updated, and I use our lads as a nice little baseline just so I kind of use the same lens for every single team. And, it allows us to focus on the analysis rather than just saying, oh, I'm projecting this guy to start, because there's a certain amount of information you can pull out of your ass, and I'm not really in the mood to stretch that too much when we end up having to do something like that. As you guys saw when I ended up predicting cuts for guys who are on, basically off-season cuts. That was a very entertaining learning experience that we ended up learning from, and not going to repeat that again. So you guys know how I feel about that. But we're going to be going from skill position to line, then line to skill position for the defense. And starting at the quarterback position, Justin Herbert has some issue with his foot fascia, the bottom, the plantar fascia. And, people say it takes years pretty much to recover from that. It's going to be bugging him for a long time. But, I don't know if he's going to be missing any actual game time. He's one tough SOB, man. Justin Herbert is an absolute rock. So I do love him to death. I do think that, he's going to play through the pain. But hopefully it does not create a situation where you're having to play multiple games without a QB. But maybe earlier on, you're going to be more run heavy, which, looking at the running back crew, I'm not very excited. I mean, Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins, if not mistaken, literally made diss tracks against one another. Like, are you fucking serious? Like, you guys are both, no disrespect to the guys on a personal level, but they're both washed compared to what, they were at their height there in Baltimore. You got Jarrett Patterson on the roster as well. Very interesting to see him coming back. And then you got Kamani Vidal, of course. So, a good group of guys, but when you're talking about the rest of the NFL, it is probably the worst group. And that's not like a diss towards y'all. Like, the NFL, we've had so much running back talent. It's why they're not being taken in the first. They have short time spans on their careers, and there's also guys that you can pick up later on who can make a big impact, i.e. Kamani Vidal could be that for you. But, of course, y'all got to stay healthy. Got to remember that. But continuing on, looking at the receiving crew, I'm not going to really talk about Ben Mason. I don't know enough about fullbacks to really give you proper analysis. I would point you over to my guy David Miller for that one. He loves his fullbacks. But tight end, receiver wise, the receiving crew, Will Dissly starting out at tight end. I think Will, when healthy, is entertaining. You got Hayden Hurst on that roster as well. Donald Parham, not to mention, but it's a group of tight ends. Again, when you look at the rest of the NFL, you don't have someone who's a bona fide, healthy, every down starter that is a difference maker. I love Will Dissly as a contributor. I love Hayden Hurst as a contributor. I love Donald Parham as a contributor. But these guys are guys who I don't personally want as my tight end one. And when you look at the rest of the NFL, where a lot of teams do have a certified, bona fide, legitimate tight end one option that is reliable every single set of downs, it is something comparatively worse. And when you look at Harbaugh, it's you see how much he relies, or at least loves and values, his tight ends. So it's going to be certainly interesting to see how he ends up using Dissly as well as Hayden Hurst, because he had Colston Loveland last year, who is far superior to any of the talents that they have in their tight end room. So TBD on that. I just don't really think that I'm the biggest fan of the tight end room. Ladd McConkey, already mentioned him. Really, really solid option. New development, DJ Chark has pretty much supplanted Quentin Johnston on the roster as the starter. So, again, this is based off of our lads. They are very, very, very at risk of being wrong in certain situations. So, again, take it with a grain of salt. But I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that DJ Chark, who has been, someone who continues picking up one-year contracts because he is good enough as a contributor and doesn't get paid like $1 million a year. Like, he does actually fetch at least some cash. He's going to be someone who's like around, he's 6'4", and he ran in the 4.3s. Like, he brings some excitement to the table. And when Quentin Johnston cannot catch a ball to save his life, which is mind-blowing, but whatever. There's a legitimate potential there, and he is up for a contract as well as a 1-year contract. Same thing with Josh Palmer. He's going to be there for, 1 more year. And I like Josh Palmer, but you are really looking at a very depleted receiving core in terms of legitimate starting talent. You got Brandon Rice that you can hope to accelerate and become a really, really, really reliable option. At the same time, he fell. I don't know why, but I had him graded as a potential starting quality receiver. Could end up being that guy who replaces Josh Palmer when his time is done. But, there's some massive, massive weaknesses in the skill position group. Hence why I'm being very nice when I'm saying B plus, because I'm weighing it extremely heavily on the fact that you have a quarterback that's kind of dealt with a lot of crap, and I'm praying that Ladd McConkey stays healthy. Look at the offensive line. You have a really, really nice tackle duo. I'm praying Joe Alt ends up transitioning well to right tackle, but Slater and Alt, two really good tackles. Zion Johnson, really solid guard. Bradley Bozeman, I thought that was a really, really nice acquisition there. Trade Pipkins as well, moving him to guard. Honestly, it's a great way, since he has one more year of a not inexpensive contract, to be able to get the most out of him. So for me, I really do like that move. Jamari Sawyer was supposed to be the right guard starter when I first made this based on our lads, and he's moved to backup right tackle, which, he's super versatile. It's what you do. You plug and play wherever you can, and that's the value of Jamari Sawyer right there. But, I think I'm going for the ceiling in terms of the overall grade here. The floor is a legitimate C+. If, Ladd McConkey can't stay healthy, if Brendan Rice needs more time to develop or simply can't separate, because that was his main issue there at USC, there's big concerns. If DJ Chark just remains a guy who should be on a team for 1 year, like, you guys could be screwed. And if Justin Herbert can't get healthy, let's not even mention that. I'm not even mentioning that. If you have Easton Stick as your quarterback, this team is instantly the worst offense in the NFL. I'll say it right then and there. Like, you guys know it. You guys got, what? Did you guys get a 60 burger put on you last year when Easton Stick was starting? Like, it was like, woo. I mean, y'all know. Y'all know. I don't need to bring up some PTSD, but I'm being extremely, extremely optimistic. And that's because I love Justin Herbert and I love Ladd McConkey, and I'm being optimistic about Joe Alt. There's a lot that can easily go wrong, and the probability leans more towards it not being as good as what I say, but I'm trying my best to allow positivity to give you guys the best chances possible. Let's look at the defense, though. Starting out with the defensive line, Otita Ogbonna. He was pretty damn solid at UCLA. I mean, he was pretty much the worst version of the Dallas Cowboys defensive interior that's slipping my mind right now. But, solid value pickup. I liked it when it happened. Just again, we've been trying to fill this defensive interior role for quite a while for the Chargers, and it still hasn't been filled. Poona Ford, again, somebody who is, in my opinion, a little bit more of a stopgap guy. His contract ends this year. You don't probably want to pay that, especially when there are some good defensive interiors coming up in this class, including ones that Harbaugh has formerly coached. Then you also have Morgan Fox in there. I mean, I actually don't think he's actually that bad, but the defensive interior needs somebody, again, when you're comparing it to the rest of the league, when you're comparing against the good offensive lines, especially in your own division. I mean, the Raiders, for God's sakes, have a pretty damn solid offensive interior. They're going to outclass your defensive interior probably 9 times out of 10. Like Jackson Powers Johnson, James, and then Parham, they're going to be getting wins against these guys at a more consistent rate than what I'd like to admit. And I want to be a fanboy. I do. I grew up in LA. Like, my first football game that I went to was actually a Rams game, but the first one I actually kind of enjoyed was a Chargers game when they were still in the soccer stadium. So keep that in mind. I mean, I really do want the Chargers to succeed here, and I'm trying to be optimistic here. But Khalil Mack's up for a contract this year. Joey Bosa said, I know they reworked some of that money. There was rumors that either they're going to be cut or traded in the offseason, but two very solid veterans right there, as long as they can stay healthy. Then you got Junior Colson, nice third-round pickup. We already talked about that. Perriman doesn't really make me feel overly comfortable, but you have Diane Henley, who's growing and developing as well. Forgot to mention Tuli Tuipulotu, who I love to be the successor to Khalil Mack. Very excited for that one, because he's somebody who I think is very underrated. Not enough people talk about him. He was in off-season find for me last off-season after I felt like I underrated him. He was someone who I fell in love with while watching now first-round pick in Tuli Fuaga. Like, I was just talking about Tuli. But Tali Fuaga, watching that tape was where I really gained respect for Tuli Tuipulotu, and I'm very excited for him to take that step up. Now, continuing on, looking at these safeties, Derwin James is an absolute beast. Just got to stay healthy, which, that's the name of the game. A lot of the best abilities, availability. Some of these guys over their career haven't been 100% healthy. And I'm not saying Derwin James is like a legitimate scare factor. Like every single year, this guy is a guaranteed loss. Like, no, I'm not saying that. But, there are I mean, if you guys lose them, that's a massive loss. And I guess you could say the same about every defense's MVP player. But especially when you're looking at the depth at strong safety, Tony Jefferson, Akeem Dent are the two guys listed behind him. I do have my concerns. Alohi Gilman's honestly a pretty damn solid free safety, in my opinion, for the value you have him there. I don't think that's bad at all. When you do look at the nickel, I do have major concerns. You end up looking at your depth chart as well. You have 3 drafted slash new nickelbacks that you guys got, because they're actually, one of them's from the Canadian Football League, if I'm not mistaken, and one of them was a UDFA. But you ended up drafting one in the 5th round as well with Tarheeb Steele. So you're pretty much telegraphing that it's not a position that you're very comfortable with, and you brought in some replacements for it. So I do have my concerns there. Jasir Taylor, to me, is not that guy who is an elite nickel, and especially in this past class where I saw a lot of really talented nickelbacks, you guys kind of missed a really solid opportunity, in my opinion. When you look at the corners on the boundary, though, Asante Samuel Jr. is one of my favorite players. I love Florida State corners, as you guys know, especially if they're, actually really solid athletes, which I loved Asante Samuel Jr. coming out. And then Christian Fulton, nice offseason pickup, short-term contract, and you're allowing Cam Hart to be able to develop behind him for a year, which is great. But at the same time, Cam Hart needs that year. I don't know if that's going to be something that makes me super comfortable. And then you should pay Asante Samuel, in my opinion. You really should. So there's a lot that is uneasy about this defense. Again, I'm being pretty optimistic by giving it a B grade. That's pretty heavily leaning on Derwin James and Asante Samuel, as well as Joey Bosa to remain healthy, and Junior Colson to be successful. So again, being super optimistic here, but at the same time, I do want to at least emphasize the fact that I am more optimistic about this team. So that's going to be the roster and draft breakdown. Let's jump right into the records prediction. And jumping in to the records predictions, we're already off to a really hot start, 7-3. I will admit I might be changing a couple of these because with the developments with Herbert and all that such, I do think that there is going to be a little bit more discussion, but this is cumulative, so we will see what happens. But let's get right into this. It's going to be super exciting. Week 1, you face the Raiders, and depending if Gardner Minshew's quarterback or not, doesn't really matter to me. It's a good roster, and it's one of the ones where I do think they could end up sneaking a W on you guys. But, it depends on Herbert's health. This is a team that's going to have a very top-end pass rush. It's going to be early, welcome to the NFL. Therefore, it's going to be tough for Joe Alt. And, Max Crosby could be getting a pretty big game. And if Justin Herbert ain't ready, this could be a big win for the Vegas Raiders to start out. So it's a game I'll think about, but we might leave it as such. Week number 2, you're going to Carolina. It's a team that I have a lot of belief in, so I'm going to believe in Carolina and leave the game as is. Week number 3, you face Pittsburgh at home. I'm giving Pittsburgh that game all day. They're going to be heavy run offense, and especially if they get Brandon Ayuk. Today is supposed to be announced at night. I don't know. I don't really, I'm not going to put my analysis too heavily into that. And I don't think I need to, because I think the Steelers will win regardless, because the heavy run game, the really solid offensive interior, and the good run game overall is kind of just exactly what you don't really want to face. At week number 4, you're facing the Kansas City Chiefs. It's going to be tough to face the Chiefs, man. The Chiefs are dominant. I do have a weird feeling that they're going to sweep you this year. Just gut feeling. And if Herbert's not fully healthy, there's a legitimate worry there. There is. Your receiving core is not up to snuff. And with losing L'Jarius Sneed, this is probably the one team that I wouldn't really fear. So you got Trent McDuffie locking down and pretty much locking down Lad McConkey, and the rest, it's going to be super tough to handle. And I'm even thinking about letting you guys start out 0-4, but we're going to do it and keep it 1-3 the more I think about it. You end up getting a bye week. Herbert's going to be healthy going into Denver. I'm going to have them win that game. I'm perfectly fine with that. Arizona is super underrated, but they end up losing BJ Ojulari. Oh, that's a kick in the balls, man. I do like the Arizona Cardinals. I do. I might even be getting a Kyler Murray jersey because, if you guys haven't seen, there's some on clearance sale, and they look really sick. And I love Kyler Murray. I really do. I love Oklahoma quarterbacks too. It's just a thing with me. It was Baker and it's Kyler, just a thing for me. But also Caleb, not really Spencer. I like Spencer when we didn't really know too much about him, but I digress. I think the Cardinals are going to maintain that victory right there. They're a good team. They're very underrated. I give them a bunch of crap, but they're still an underrated squad. Week number 8, we have you guys beating a mini bye version of the New Orleans Saints. That's a game where I could see the Saints flipping it. I'm not a huge fan of the Saints, and I got plenty of shit for that. It is what it is. Clint Kubiak is going to Clint Kubiak, and that could end up leading to a victory here, a victory there. But I just have a lack of faith in the offense for the Saints, and then the defense. There's still so many pieces that have yet to like genuinely be put into place, except that linebacking core and the DBs. Which, to be fair, the corners and the linebackers are a significant portion of the defense. They're just defensive heavy. Like, it is what it is. And to be fair, they can easily shut down this offense. My issue is with their offense, and I think this defense could potentially shut down the offense. We'll see about that. This is a game I will be revisiting, and I might end up giving to New Orleans. But I do think the Cleveland Browns will be getting a victory when you guys go to Cleveland. They just have too damn good of a defense, and even if Deshaun is still going to be rusty, I still think that team is really, really, really powerful. Week number 10, you face the Tennessee Titans, and I think the Tennessee Titans could end up pulling this victory off. Very talented roster. They even have a really good corner core. This is a game they should win. The more I think about it, it's a game they should win. But I'm going to leave it as is. There's an RNG factor in the NFL. You end up playing the Bengals next in week number 11. They're coming off a mini bye. I'm giving the Bengals that victory. And then you're facing the Ravens at home. Like, Ravens and Bengals back-to-back at home. That's going to be a pretty brutal stretch right there. You're playing 3 AFC North teams in 4 weeks. Like, yeesh. You got the Falcons coming off a full bye as well at home. Man, this is a crappy stretch right here, guys. Look at this. Ugh. Like, literally, that guy, like, brother, ugh. Like, that's exactly how I'm feeling looking at this. The Falcons are a really good squad. If Kirk can stay healthy, this is a legitimate championship contention team. And then the Chiefs are just going to Chief, man. I genuinely believe the Chiefs are fucking baller. And they're going to be pushing again for a Super Bowl run, with or without a good offensive line. I mean, they did it last year. I didn't think they had that great of an offensive line, and they still got a Super Bowl ring. So I still think they could do it this year. I do have you guys beating the Buccaneers. The Buccaneers could give you some problems, but their defense I do not have any faith in. Their offense, on the other hand, does have some really good contributors. We're having you sweep the Broncos. I think I'm perfectly fine with that. My conscience is settled. Having you split with the Raiders makes me feel comfortable about week 1. And then you technically could lose here to the Patriots, but I think I'm going to leave it as is. I think I am. 7-10 is not an ideal record for you, but my God, like, look at this schedule. So looking at a game that you should probably potentially win, it is week 7. I do think I might flip this game. I love Arizona. I love what they stand for. Like, they're just a really solid team. I do have concerns about the interior of their offensive line, which at least matching weakness to weakness there. And their running game is not really their forte, but I do love Trey Benson and James Conner. Like, it is a good squad. Their receiving core might be superior to your corner core. Like, their defense, though, defensive interior is cheeks. You're going to win that game. And your running backs aren't very good, but it's not like the Cardinals have a great defensive interior or linebacking core. So you're pretty much matching weakness to weakness here. And you're going to be, at this point, 2-3 with a really tough stretch ahead of you. I hate to say it. I might feel very comfortable allowing the Cardinals to slip here. I think I might. I debate actually giving this game to New Orleans, but I think for the time being, we're going to let it sit. And we're going to let it marinate, because I think that it's perfectly fine to let you guys win at home versus a team that's not that good. They just have a good defense. So TBD on that. We're giving you an 8-9 record. Not super exciting, but again, with the Herbert potential injury, with a new coaching system and a new defensive coordinator coming to the NFL, like, that is something where I easily could see you guys having a floor of 6 wins here. And that's not a bad thing. It just is what happens when you have a poor receiving core with a quarterback that's not healthy and a new coach. So I'm being very, 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 very optimistic with this record. I'm going to admit, I think that the likelihood is that you're at 7 or 6 wins. But I'm hoping that you guys end up staying healthy and you guys can actually end up being more effective as a receiving group than what it seems on paper. That's going to be the video. Thank you so much for watching. See you on the far side. Peace.